Okay. In case you didn't notice, there was a debate last night, this time between the vice presidential candidates for our two major parties. And the question always comes up, who won? Well, neither one of them won. Because they are doing what? They're debating policy. And you have, on one side, they have their way to make policy, I'll put it that way, and then the other side has their own way too. And what they're competing for at a very high level of contributions is the right to make policy. Because after they elect themselves and Congress, they feel they have a mandate to make policy to do what? Make decisions and solve problems, govern the way that they want. So when we go to the voting booth, we're not choosing between candidates. We're choosing between control for who gets to make policy. And I mean, $20 billion to get control over making policy is ridiculous. It's crazy. So you have these people talking about democracy and restoring our democracy and saving our democracy and protecting our democracy and making America great again and blah, 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 blah. Okay? Well, what's the problem that they are identifying that needs to be fixed? You all are competing to save democracy and restore our government to, I don't know what point in history. And why? What's wrong with the government? And why is what you are advocating for going to fix that problem? Because right now, the only problem that they're fixing is who gets to govern, which means who gets to make decisions, which means who gets to make policy. Okay? And they say their policies are better for you. You're going to save money. They're going to reduce your taxes and all this other crazy mess. But this gets to the real problem here. And that is problem definition. What problem are they solving? Even with amendments, like in Kentucky, where I am presently, they have a couple of amendments on the ballot this year. Now, number one, you can't make amendments at the ballot box because you can't meet the requirements for amendments, which is a quorum has to agree to the amendment and a majority of all the people have to vote to ratify the amendment. And you can't do that at the ballot box, especially with voters who, even before you begin, they aren't a quorum, so they can't make the ballot, and they can't vote to reach a majority consensus, especially when the registered voters in the state are less than a quorum, and participation drops you to a point where it's impossible for you to get a majority consensus of all the people. Just impossible. It's not a majority of the voters or the participating voters. It's a majority of all the people have to, and with a constitutional amendment for the state constitution, that threshold is even higher. Whereas you might have to have, you should have 2/3 a majority of the people just to form the quorum to discuss and agree to the amendment that you want, which means that you look at the benefits and cost of the amendment that you're trying to do, and how it solves the problem, and you're agreeing on, okay, this will solve the problem. Okay? And then you turn it over to a vote to ratify it. And that ratification has to be very high. Very high. It can be 2/3 or more to ratify, depending on your state legislature. So you can't decide like something like school vouchers at the ballot box. It's an amendment to spend, to give collective revenue to individuals to take to a private school, which does what? Takes money away from the public school, which is a collective service. Okay? If that collective service isn't functioning effectively and efficiently, then it's Congress's, your legislature's responsibility to fix it. Whatever way it needs to be fixed, at the cost that it needs to be fixed, and you agree on that cost-benefit relationship. Everybody. It has to be a majority of all the people. So this gets us back to, how do you assemble all the people so they can participate to agree on matters and then to determine matters through some type of majority consensus. How do you do that? That's the main problem that we have today, is that we haven't looked at how we're making decisions. How? What's our legislative assembly have to look like in order for us to make collective decisions? That doesn't have anything to do with democracy at that point. At that point, the decision is we have to have a legislative assembly that functions a certain way, that's assembled a certain way, that will make it possible, for us to make collective decisions. That's when democracy comes into play, because that democracy tells us how to assemble that legislative assembly and how it should function in order to make a decision that's a majority consensus of all the people. Okay? We're putting the cart before the horse, because you can't decide how to fix a problem if you don't have any way to make that collective decision. And that's what my book is about. Thanks.